Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Apathetic coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Apathetic spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast. The Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro matchday chatter in a podcast. And well, Boro's win against West Brom and a defeat to Preston and Ryan Giles coming back, Whitaker coming in, Edmondson leaving and then coming back again within the same couple of days. And then pretty much an eventful week. Boro wrapped everything up and I've got two people to dissect it with me in Dana and Matt. And guys, as always, your one key takeout from the week. Denimol, I'll come to you first. What's your one key takeout?
That we are very lucky to be in the playoff places right now as we record this. I think between ourselves, West Brom and Blackburn, there's a bit of a, let's say, a special kind of shit-off going on there because it doesn't seem like anybody really wants 5th or 6th. And I tell you what, anyone that, well, you could kind of gauge who's going to finish 3rd and 4th. They're going to be licking their lips at whoever finishes 5th and 6th because I think there's inconsistencies within our game, certainly. Blackburn, one win in their last 9 league games, and West Brom only registered 2 victories in 2025, the same as us. It's just, it makes me think, like, what is going on in that part of the championship? And yeah, we're very fortunate to be in that position. It will probably change, but very fortunate nonetheless.
And then for you, Matt?
Yeah, Dana's hit the nail on the head. With that, I was going to say something similar. Mine is that I'm just becoming quite tired and disillusioned with this season right now. I'm sort of past the point of empathy and sick of going around the same sort of cycle of self-sabotage and mediocrity. I mean, you just knew after a midweek result that was pretty good and a week off the pitch that was full of positives, you just knew that there was a very strong chance that we'd follow it up with something like we did yesterday. And it's not even losing 2-1 to a team in the Championship or Preston, because we do that a lot. We do that frequently. And that can happen, but it's, again, losing it in the manner that we did. It's just getting beyond the point of a joke now. And I was going to make the same point as Dee, to be honest, that we are so lucky to be in the playoffs still. And I know an easy, quick positive people can pull is that, well, we're 6th, so it's okay. But what are the chances of us staying there? Because as Dee said, like, the form of the teams around us is shocking. She mentioned West Brom. I think Watford have lost 6 of 7 or something ridiculous. And there's actually a pretty decent pack of teams who are starting to bunch up behind us. So it's only going to take Coventry to keep this run going, Norwich to get themselves in gear, Bristol City, Sheffield Wednesday to string even a semi-decent run of games together, and they'll be right on our back. And I tell you what, when we drop out the top 6, because I think it'll happen at some point with the way we're going, I think the alarm bells will start ringing then. And that's when things might start getting really, really serious. So we're sort of lingering above a trapdoor at the minute, waiting for it to open. And yeah, I'm just getting really, really frustrated and feeling quite uneasy about Boro's playoff push right now because, yeah, equally, it would only take a semi-decent run for us to get clear of this pack. But let's be honest, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. We've not posted back-to-back wins in over 2 months. So, yeah, it's just more of the same, really.
Yeah, to round mine off, I think Ronan Keating said it best, and life is a roller coaster, because watching Middlesbrough is like being on a roller coaster. You have the highs of midweek. You know, you beat West Brom, you go, this is the moment. This is when we're going to do it. And then they knock you back down. And yeah, we're just in that typical Boro moment. And to be honest, I feel like we could have today definitely released a podcast and then we voiced over the teams instead, said, oh, Preston, West Brom. And you would have pretty much got a very similar feeling from what Middlesbrough's results have been. Appreciate we have changed this job a little bit to make it a bit more fun, because I think there is a bit of apathy setting in with a few fans. The signings are great, but this club just loves bringing you up to knock you back down again, which is a bit of a reality check for us all and keeps you humble, I guess. But let's look at the first game in West Brom, because it was the return of Tony Mowbray. And then how nice was it to see him back in the dugout once again?
Yeah, it was really nice. He got a really good reception, really warm reception before the game. I think Tony Mowbray is one of those figures within football that I don't see anyone disliking in any way, shape, or form, and that's the measure of a really likable man. And then you factor in his management, and let's not forget, we reference I Talk Ranker a lot on this podcast and that promotion season, but Tony Mowbray laid down a lot of the foundation for that. And of course, he's had his struggles with cancer, and it was horrendous to hear the news that, he was out of football for a while trying to recover from that. But on the flip side, it's fantastic to know that he's recovered now, and he's recovered enough to be back in management. And yeah, it was really nice to see him, and obviously wish him all the best. And that was always the thought of mine when he was announced as West Brom manager, with the caveat that all the best after Tuesday night. And surprising actually that he didn't beat us on Tuesday, because Tony Mowbray watches us all the time. He knows Boro's strengths and weaknesses. Maybe, as you mentioned last podcast, Johnny, it was a little bit too early for him to record another victory against Boro because he didn't have too much time with that team. But yeah, it's probably actually bad news for Boro, because he's a good manager, and I do feel like West Brom will get into a rhythm and get into a pattern and build up momentum that I think they just haven't had recently, and that could spell bad news for Boro, because they are, of course, a promotion rival.
Yeah, well, they had a very good result yesterday, did West Brom, of course, scoring 5. And it was a very nice homecoming I would say, from a result perspective. But it was a 2-0 win for Boro, and one of the big, big changes was seeing Aidan Morris in midfield. Matt, how much of a difference did he make midweek in Boro's win?
Massive. You could see it within 10 minutes. I think I posted on X after 10 minutes of the game kicking off. I was like, I just love Aidan Morris so much. He just made such a difference. The balance of the side and the midfield is just so much better with him in it. He connects the defence to the midfield and helps us, start them moves through the thirds really well. His reading of the game is just brilliant. He's so good at returning possession, winning it back, getting Boro playing in the right direction. And he also, I think, just makes Hayden Hackney just a much better player. He makes all the players around him better, to be honest. But I think having that protection behind him allows Hackney to not worry so much about his defensive responsibilities and express himself more going forwards. So they complement each other so well as a pair. And well, we saw, didn't we, over the spell of results to which he was injured, how much of a loss he was. And on the flip side, instantly with his return, he proved how good he can be in that game, especially. So, yeah, it's a shame we couldn't back that up really yesterday, but midweek, especially, Aidan Morris once again just proved exactly why he's just pivotal to everything we do, and a player we kind of rely on quite a lot at this moment.
Yeah, do you think, Dana, that they bring out the best of each other, Hayden and Aidan?
Yeah, I think they do. It's obvious that Aidan Morris is a very talented footballer, and it's, as Matt said, it's his in-possession play and his out-of-possession play as well, because I mentioned about Morris quite a few times about out-of-possession. He just gives us that little bit of tenacity, that energy, that pressing, good reading of the game, but also in possession, I like his body movement. He shifts his like momentum from one side of his body to the other just to deceive whoever's trying to press him. It makes him pretty press resistant. And Hayden Hackney does have that in him as well, to be press resistant. And his levels have dropped. Quite a few Boro players' levels have dropped, in fairness. But it's so obvious that when you bring Aidan Morris in there, who just does have that physicality, has that energy, it releases Hayden Hackney a little bit, because with Barlasser in the team, I think Hayden Hackney has to do more work, and he has to do more work behind where he's probably wanting to be. Hackney has a great drive. I think he's very forward thinking in his passing and his movement on the ball, his dribbling, his driving runs. But when you have Barlasser there, it's just different type of player, isn't it, to Ed Morris entirely. You just have to look at the pair of them, that physically they look very, very different. Obviously Morris a bit more bulkier than Barlasser is. So, yeah, I mean, I like the two of them. I really do. I mentioned on previous podcasts that I think they're Boro's best midfield partnership, and I'm glad that that's been echoed by a lot of corners of the Boro fan base, because two very talented players with pretty high ceilings, I think. So glad to see that Hackney was released from his shackles a little bit with Aidan Morris beside him, and long may that continue.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you there on the relationship that they've got. They definitely bring out the best in each other. And I think Hayden Hackney's best when he's driving forwards and really ball carrying, progressing the play that way. And I was saying in our group chat, I would love to see Hackney in that 10 role a little bit more and on that left-hand side as well, because I think he can definitely play there. Appreciate we have much better options from a creative standpoint, but I still think he has that capability enough to play that position if we needed to be a bit more solid. But we would need an additional Aidan Morris duplicate to play that game, because I don't think it would work otherwise. But in the overall assessment of the game, guys, 2-0, great result. 2 wonderful knee slides, which we'll come on to in just a moment. But what was everyone's overall assessment of the game? I appreciate Hackney's strike was fantastic. So was Ben Dork, and we got a clean sheet, which is also a bonus. But what was everyone else's assessment of the game?
It was everything we needed at that moment. I really do feel like if we'd not won on, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Might have been Tuesday, I can't remember. But had we not won, sorry, I think given recent form off the back of the Pompey performance, things could have turned quite sour. And it's kind of typical of Carricksborough that often when we are in need of a result, we find a way. But despite it being a solid performance, I wouldn't say spectacular. 2 very good moments of quality from Dork and Hackney gave us the victory. I thought, especially second half, we did really well to weather the West Brom storm, the West Brom pressure. I think at times this season, had we conceded in that moment, the game could have swung quite easily in their favour. And we've seen what Boro can do and how easily we can fold when the momentum swings so quickly in the opposition's favour at times this season. So that was a real fragile part of the game where things could have spun the other way, but we dealt with it. We defended relatively well and got the second goal to sheer it up. So as an isolated performance, it was exactly what Boro needed, and I was really happy with it at that time. It was obviously just a question of it's probably only going to be worth something if we back it up. And yeah, as we have done the majority of times we've won games this season, we didn't.
Yeah, I've said this before to you, Matt, haven't I, where I'm like, I wish that we would just have a good week where we record a victory midweek and record a victory or a good enough result on the weekend so that we can discuss a really good week for Boro on the podcast. And here we have another example of that not happening. Yeah, the West Brom game, I think it was effective because it was a different type of display actually from Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough, and credit to them for that, because with you, what you said there, Matt, about basically weathering that storm a little bit. Oh, was it a storm? I don't know. I think it probably wasn't, because we restricted West Brom to chances outside the box, not a lot of high quality opportunities for them, and that was a big indicator of how good Boro were being solid in that game, which is not something that we have been this season, so real credit to them for that. We actually low blocked West Brom, I would say, because we were compact, we were deep, and that's good to see. It's usually us getting low blocked, and we actually spun that narrative a little bit. So I was worried at the beginning of the second half because they really pushed on us and they had a lot of possession. But this is the thing. Sometimes there's a bit of a nervousness in the air because other teams have the ball and they've gained a lot of territory. They're pushing their players. Their lines got higher because they've just pushed on, and when opposition, they've pushed on a Boro. But I didn't feel nervous in that game because I saw Boro being solid. I saw Boro restricting West Brom to opportunities outside the box, like I said. Their real threat was Mikey Johnson, and his end product was terrible. It really was. He had that teasing danger to him, where his dribbling was very close control, quick, looked like he could cause problems, but yeah, his final ball was poor. I enjoyed that display. I think it was good, it was effective, we got the opportunities and we took them. But it's just a shame, and talking about this is frustrating me a little bit because we followed it up with a defeat, and I really wanted that West Brom game to mean something. And in isolation, it's a good 3 points still, but it could have been so much better if we'd have backed that up with another 3 points against Preston. But it does show that Michael Carrick-Middlesbrough can change and adapt and get a victory as well. So I think if there's a positive to take out this week, it's definitely that West Brom game, and that we can show a different side to us and come out with the 3 points there.
Yeah, and to add to that, guys, I think it just shows again that in that top six, you go, God, we can beat all these teams, and we can be adaptable, and we can create chances, and we can put them to the sword if we need to, and that brings you so much joy of knowing that if we were to get into this position, it'd be quite a confident way of maybe that competition of playoffs. You could pretty much do something in there, but it's the results like Preston that fill you with so much frustration. And how many times have I said this on the pod this season, where we've done something so good, and to follow it up with a result against Preston, it just leaves a bit of taste in your mouth. And we can be a really football hipster team, and I think to describe this, it's kind of like we can break the lines, we can play off from the back, we can create some scintillating football, get you off your seat, you go, wow, look at all these amazing things aboard it. It's chaotic, it's fun, it's beautiful. But sometimes, we just need a bit of no nonsense. Just get the ball out of danger. Don't have to play out from the back if we need to. Knock it out for a throw in, and just, I can't believe I'm saying this, bit of Tony Pulis, just a bit of no nonsense, just a bit of, just get it out there.
We
Kind
do
of
not
like,
speak his name.
you shouldn't say his name where he stood, but look, I hated Tony Pulis' ball, I hated Warnock ball, but there is a time for it, and you do need those moments. And no one's going to shout at you for knocking the ball out for a throw in or a corner, as long as you're not conceding. Do you know what I mean? And that's what frustrates me. I don't know. I was saying on a Sunderland pod earlier around, like, I give on What the Folk, and we got Graham's voice note later, but I was just saying about around a coffee analogy, said that you could go to like a really like bougie coffee place with French jazz in the background, get a latte with like all these love hearts and your name engraved in it, but just sometimes you just need a black coffee, and sometimes fortunately the black coffee, get the job done and go along with it. But I'm not going to dwell on this because I want to talk knee slide club, in the club we all fan, because these knee slides then were, if there was a real bonus of this season, we're seeing more knee slides and no shithousery. But hey, we will go to the island at least once this season, hopefully, because the drinks are free. But these knee slides, Dana, we'll start with Hayden Hackney. Talk me through it.
Well, this is the best one of the two. There's Hackney and Dork. I think that's a defiant stance within the knee slide, and that's why I love it so much. And there's a decent length on it as well. Hackney's had a really good knee slide previously. I think we rated it a 9 out of 10. And to be honest, I feel like we were a little bit harsh there, because actually looking back at the thread that we've put on Twitter, it's probably actually a 10. But it was quite early in the season, so I think that's why we gave it a 9. That one's very good from Hackney. It is the kind of oomph of the stance that makes it for me. The stance and the slide, very good. I think that one, it's not as good as the 9 out of 10 one that we ranked previously. I think it's maybe an 8.5.
It's up there. I think if we rewatch the clip, I think it's what's really important in this knee slide. It's just before it as well, is that he does a little ear, the voice to the ears. There you go. Oh, I can hear you yapping. I can hear you. Everyone's asking for the knee slide. You can hear it in the crowd.
It's that
and
he goes into it.
What I really like about Lord Dinner, I think he gets a really good jump into it, right? And then it leaves the marks on the pitch. And I enjoy
Yeah.
that because he's got a really good glide to it. You can see where he's pivoted his foot. And that just makes that line have that small angle to it. And for me, I think that could be enough. It's up there. Matt, I don't know what you think on this. I think it's definitely up there. An 8.5 could be probably the rating I would give it. But what's your thoughts?
I think it's a fantastic knee slide. I really do. I like it the more I watch it. The gestures beforehand, it's almost like he's rehearsed that, in his front of his bedroom mirror or something. It's the way he jumps into it. There's so much power behind it and intent. I'm surprised he didn't go through the pitch. I'm surprised he didn't just go straight through, and the length he gets on it, he sort of glides right to the edge of the pitch. It's like a perfect length, and there's a little bit of a rotation at the end as well. Followed with the fist pump right in front of the south, I think. Yeah, there's a good prelude to it. There's a good finish to it. It's an all round knee slide. I'm struggling to think of ways it could be better. That's the point I would make. What would improve that knee slide to make it an absolute 10? Would it just have to be longer? Does he have to start doing a spin, a 360, a somersault? Like what's going to take that to be beat? It's got it all, right?
I have a preference in knee slides, and it's where when you come into it, I feel like you need a bit more back to it in terms of you lean back a bit further. Yes, you do put a bit more pressure on your knee, but you glide a lot further. And I feel like you could have just leaned back a little bit more. And by doing so, yes, he might have went on the AstroTurf and caused himself an injury, but it would have just given him the length that he needs. I think he's got everything there: the length, the girth, the angle. He's got it all. Everything's there.
It's the facial expression as well. Like he's proper into it as well. He's giving it his all.
Yeah, and look, he's got it all there. But I just want more. I think I just want a bit more there, Dana. But there was a second knee slide, Dana. I think we can talk about Dana Malt and
yes,
and Dork. What a great strike, and then knee slide to finish.
Yeah, this is one that he leans quite far back for this one, but there's some determination on that young man's face there with that knee slide. And you know what, with Ben Dork, he's very passionate within his celebrations, isn't he? He's always giving it the fist pump to the crowd. And I quite like that within his knee slide. And again, decent length on the slide. I just think he stumbles a little bit as he comes up. So it's not as good as Hackney's, but it's still very solid. I think I'd give that one an 8 for me. There's no pictures of the tracks on that one. Credit to Claire for the knee slide tracks for Hayden Hackney's. I just love that people are taking photos of the grass. It just makes me so happy. So yeah, the Dork one, we'll go for an 8. That one, I think.
Matt, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just lacking that intensity of the Hackney one. Still good length on it. He's still showing some passion in there, but there is a bit of a wriggle at the end. I don't know if he's lost his balance. I don't know if one of his knees gets a bit stuck in the turf, a little bit at the end. But Hackney's there again, trying to steal the spotlight, jumping on his shoulders. It's like, Hackney, mate, you've already had one. Trying to get in on another one, So yeah, it's not as good. I'd give Hackney's a 9 and Dork's a 7.5, I think.
Look, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news here, but I think it's a DQ. I think it's a DQ knee slide. I think it's a disqualification. I don't think it's a proper knee slide. I think when you are...
How's that not a knee slide?
He slid on his knees.
It's all about knee sliding up for me. And I think if we rewatch this clip just an additional time, I think the wriggle in this, he tries to add more length to it. And by doing so, I think that's a DQ. I don't think that is a...
Nah, I'm not having that. Sorry.
That's harsh. I think
it is harsh.
Very, very harsh.
But I don't make the rules. Well, actually, maybe I do. But I enjoyed it. But everything prior to the little wiggle at the end, I think it's up there. I think it's a good 7.5, and I'd agree with Matt on the scoring system. I'll bump Hackney up to a 9, go 7.5 for Ben Dork. But that was all for Knee Slide Club. And until next time, we'll move on. But for right now, we'll move on to Preston North End now. So Boro got beat against Preston and coming back up a back-to-back win again, because we haven't had one for 2 months. And it was the third time Middlesbrough have lost 2-1 at Deepdale in a row. And the last time we won there was under Jonathan Woodgate, and we won 2-0. Dynamo, you were there in the crowd, in the flesh, had your chips, which looked a bit sad, but how was the trip?
Shite. The chips were actually good, but the trip was shite. You know what? I could barely be arsed with this game because I've been so exhausted the last few days, and Boro did not remedy that, and I probably should have expected that they wouldn't. The game itself, you know what? I thought we started the first half well, and we actually started the second half well, but you can't start the halves well and just have that. Like, there was a point in the first half where Preston wrestled back momentum because they were winning the midfield battle, and all of a sudden I was seeing similar, not the same, but similar patterning to the Portsmouth game in which we were losing a lot of the duels. They were very hot on us, essentially, in the middle of the park, and they sprung with a lot of confidence whenever they won the ball back. And what let Preston down, I think, was their final ball once they were countering on us. Boro were pretty fortunate in the end, I think. I mean, fortunately, we lost the game. But in the first half, they were pretty fortunate that Preston didn't have that final ball there, because there was a moment, actually, where Sam Greenwood had the ball and he overhit a pass over to the right-hand side. Preston had a lot of space, actually, when they were countering on Boro and springing forward. And I thought, right, okay, we managed to get back into the game in the second half because we had the momentum. We came out really strong. We created chances. We forced Freddie Woodman into a few saves. And I thought, right, we're in the ascendancy here. We scored the goal. Can we get another? And then there was a corner. And we've watched a lot of football matches to know that just one little tiny thing like a corner can really stop the momentum for Boro and swing it in Preston's favour. And I literally went out loud, oh God, a corner. And it wasn't because I thought we were going to concede from it. It was because I thought that's going to halt our momentum here. And we didn't manage to, obviously we scored from that momentum that we had, but we didn't manage to get ourselves in front. And would we rue those chances that were, Freddie Woodman came up good and saved them and prevented us from getting in front. And then after that, I mean, that goal, that second goal, I couldn't believe my eyes, to be honest. My mouth was agape for about 2 minutes, because even by Boro standards, that is quite something. It was a complete comedy goal, but nobody was laughing about it. And here we are talking about another defeat, essentially. We had a really, really good spell in the second half, scored, didn't manage to get ourselves in front then. All it takes for a team like Preston that are going to soak up that pressure, as they did pretty well, with obviously thanks to a good goalkeeper between the sticks, all it takes is for them to have that one moment, and they got that moment and they took it, and Boro just didn't have enough time to answer that. So just frustrating in the end. 5,000 Boro fans there, and to be honest, it depends on where you were in the ground. It didn't sound like 5,000 Boro fans, to be honest. And I think for me, that was because after that really good spell that we had at the start of the second half, Boro then started horseshoeing it around, and that is not the type of football that gets a crowd up. So yeah, we were engaged at many points in that game, but then it kind of fell flat, I think, and that was a direct response to what we were seeing on the pitch, unfortunately.
Yeah, and before we come to the winner, I just want to quickly chat about Emanuel Lath, because when off injured, of course, he's linked with a move away in this month, albeit, it doesn't really start the MLS till about the mid to late February. I think it's the 22nd, I believe it starts. But do you think this may scupper his move at all, guys?
I don't know if it will or not, because I believe the MLS window it might be open beyond our window. It might be worth double checking on that, but I'm sure I saw somewhere that it might be. I don't know if that will leave us even more exposed, because essentially after the 3rd of February, I think it is, we can't replace him. So my first initial thought was, well, that scuppered his move and it means he's staying. So initially it was a positive. And then I thought, but it's a groin injury. We've lost our top goal scorer and Tommy Conway's out, so it's a negative. And I thought that might not stop Atlanta from trying to get the deal over the line, because from what we understand and what's been said, the most of the work is done. It's a case of a few final pieces and Boro essentially getting a replacement in place. So I don't know if the progress that's been made so far will be scrapped. I don't know what that will mean for both sides. both parties. I don't know, but I'm feeling quite uneasy about it, both on the pitch and for off the pitch reasons, because we've lost Emanuel Latte for however long, we don't know. That's a huge blow, regardless of transfer rumours or what's going on off the pitch. But then equally, I still feel like Atlanta won't give up. And I just don't like the idea of a team wanting our number 9 outside of our transfer window when we can't replace him. So I'm not too sure on exactly the facts and when they can still make moves, when their deadline is up, and what that might mean for us. But I think it is making me a little bit uneasy. Losing Lath, it is a huge blow regardless, because even though I was happy to see Force come on yesterday, he just didn't look sharp. He just didn't look comfortable. You could tell he was a player who'd been out for a while and just wasn't quite on it, and he hadn't played up there for a while. So short term, it's not great, and long term, I'm a bit unsure as to what it might mean for Boro and our transfer business.
It's going to be interesting how Boro play it, isn't it? Because as you mentioned, we don't have a lot of time to replace Lath even now. We're on the 26th of January. Michael Carrick said the more that it rumbles on, the more difficult that it gets. And I don't think the injury, it depends on how long it is, but I do remember, and this is like an unlocked a childhood memory. Obviously, I absolutely loved Stuart Downing when I was growing up, and he had a pretty significant injury, and then Villa still signed him, so I don't think any sort of injury would stop that move. But it's mostly about the timing of it. Boro do not want to be in a situation in which they're desperately having to try to do a deal, because obviously they'll have targets in mind. They do their due diligence, the transfer team, because this was probably always going to happen, even thinking back to August. But like, do Boro basically block the move? If it rumbles on toward like closer to the deadline itself, I don't know. It does make me uneasy as well. I do agree with Matt on that. It was good to see Marcus Forss in his unusual position of striker, though. You know, me saying he's not a striker, then plays as a striker. It's
something you've longed to see, Dana. I mean, there's another thing you've been longed to see in Ryan Giles being back in Borussia. I'll come on to that in just a moment. But you know, with Lath getting injured, it does put you in a difficult spot. You know, Tommy Conway, I don't think he's too far away, so you might see him against Sunderland, but for the most part, I think you're looking at probably Marcus Forss leading the line for that game. And, you know, just put Boro in a difficult moment. But you do have, you know, on paper, got some good strikers at the club at the minute. But yeah, I agree with you, Matt. He needs to get more games under his belt. And that will just give him the confidence that he won't, hopefully, fingers crossed, get this recurring injury that he's been niggling with over like the last 12 months. But let's talk about the again. Guys, you feel like, you know, you're watching the same movie over and over again, but it's like you're getting it from like different perspectives now. And because another big individual mistake again, right? And Boro find themselves with defeat. So how would you feel about their goal, guys?
I'm still in disbelief by it. Even as Dana said, by our standards, it's almost like we're trying to top what we've done previously. But that yesterday was unlike anything I've ever seen on a football pitch. I mean, one small excuse I've seen, and that's fair enough, if Rav and Ayling have collided heads, then that can be a serious issue, and they might have been dazed by that. We don't know the after effects of how serious that was, but the fact they both went for the same ball and collided heads is, you know, comedic Boro defending in itself. If they've both got a head injury, if they both go down, the referee probably blows up. But what makes it worse is they both like crouch over simultaneously, as almost it is in sync, which makes it look even more hilarious. But then the fact Aidan Morris could just hoof it around the corner, get rid of it, he almost blindly plays it back to the pair of them, and neither of them are even looking at the ball. So even if them two have a legitimate head injury, and it's unfortunate in that respect, Morris should not be playing that ball backwards into that area where the two players are. But then when it reaches Ayling, they're both fine within seconds. It's almost like the reality kicks in of what's happening. But then even then, if Ayling is feeling slightly dazed, Glover's right there. Either boot it out for a corner or just lay it to Glover, who can absolutely hoof it. Why he tries to turn just outside of his 6-yard box, I'll never know. Only to miss the touch. And then obviously, to top it off, who does it fall to? Emil Rees. I mean, you you could not have scripted this whole consequence of events in a more typical Boro manner. And I would be shocked if we topped this season. But then it's Boro, so who knows? But
we will.
As I say, like, to lose at Preston, we've done that before, and you go, okay, that can happen. But to lose in this manner, I'm in utter disbelief by it, even by our standards. It's I've got no more words. I've got no words left.
I think if you don't laugh, you'll cry, won't you? I mean, I didn't realise that they clashed heads because obviously we're at the other end of the stadium. So I genuinely thought, and I hope people aren't surprised that I thought this because this is Boro we talked about. I thought they were like readjusting their socks or something. So then when I saw that they'd clashed heads, my anger was a little bit simmered. But what people, I haven't really seen many people mention this. Why is Ayling even going for that ball? Because it bounces up and bounces up pretty slowly, but Rav's got that. I have no idea why Ayling steers in and tries to get that ball and head that, I'm assuming, back to Glover. I just don't understand his decision to do that. Again, miscommunication. We've seen that at Portsmouth at home earlier on in this season. All Ayling needs to do there is block off that man that's trying to get to that ball. He wouldn't have got to it anyway. I genuinely think that Rav van den Berg would have headed that out. So I don't understand why Ayling has to go for that ball, personally. It was just... oh my God, it was ridiculous. Honestly, absolutely ridiculous. And I said to my dad before, the game that Emil Rees always scores against us. So I was kind of thinking at 1-0 Preston, oh, don't worry, it's not that bad. We've still got the inevitable Emil Rees goal to come. And look what happened. It's so inevitable. Trust me, we'll be back at Deepdale next season. If Emil Rees is a Preston player still and he hasn't signed for Boro and he had the old Jason Ewell effect, then he'll probably score against us again. So, yeah, it's... I said on a previous podcast, I'm kind of resigned to the Boro are going to stay in the Championship next season because that's an example of many of us being incredibly costly and halting any momentum that we could possibly build up.
Yeah, and... for that header as well from Ayling, Rav van den Berg pulls out of that header because he just sees Ayling just darting in, and that causes an error. But lack of communication, individual errors again is a big problem for us. And I think what made me laugh on this goal, and I probably shouldn't have laughed at the time, but it was just the reaction of Boro players. And you know what, you could probably put this in the Louvre because it is just so funny at like how annoyed they all are at each other. But it's just the celebration from the Preston player that makes me laugh. But it's very typical Boro. It's frustrating me. But since we're top of the league now for individual errors leading to a goal, do any of you guys have a favorite error at all that you wanna highlight from this season?
Oh, Jones at Derby, that back pass straight to Caden Jackson. My driving instructor is a Derby fan, Al Melv, and I literally didn't even want to show my face on that next lesson because I just thought, Jesus Christ. And obviously, long-time listeners of the podcast know that I do not like Derby County in any way, shape or form. I probably don't like them more than any other team ever, and that was pretty bad from Jones there. The swivel pass, absolutely nothing on it. Through ball straight to Caden Jackson, and and that was the deciding goal of the game. So that's probably up there as the worst one for me.
Matt,
there's been a few.
You got a favourite, Matt, at all? I mean, we could do a big thread on this, to be honest. There's a lot of them now, but is there any more for you, Matt?
Yeah, I was going to say I did an XG related thread last year. I might have to try and put together one for errors leading to goals this year. You mentioned it, top for errors leading to a goal. You'll never sing that, but. Yeah, I don't think what happened yesterday can be topped. The only one, I mean, I was there in the away end because, of course, I was for the Jones back pass, and it was like time had stopped in that moment. It was almost like in slow motion. So that was bad. But the one where Clark and Dieng absolutely wire each other against Pompey is another one because they hit each other with so much impact, and I can't remember who it was. Dieng who goes absolutely flying. That was something else, but I don't know if favourite's the right word to use, Johnny, but I appreciate you putting a positive comedic spin on this. But if we manage to top yesterday's, I'll be astounded. I mean, in which scenario can we top yesterday's? Like, can you think of a scenario that is worse than that? Unless, other than Glover picking the ball up and just deciding to turn around and pass it into our own net and just, putting his arms up like this.
We haven't had a back pass goal yet, where the defender blindly gives it back to the keeper and then the keeper tries to put his foot on the ball and then it just rolls at the back of the net. We haven't had that yet. So, I don't know, maybe that's to come.
I think that would top it all off, that Dimmy bottle cap story that we had under Karanka. Maybe that's just what we're missing, We've done everything else now, apart from throwing it in the goal ourselves. So, yeah, we'll see. But I mean, if anyone else has got a favourite, just let us know in our YouTube comments or tweet us, because I'm assuming we'll probably create something about it. Anyway, let's move on and chat about some news to the week. A bit more of a positive spin, even more so, because we're very, 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 very busy. I can even add another very on that one, because there was some outgoings in Hamilton. Edmondson disappeared for a quick moment and then came back. Lucas Engel is pretty much tipped to go to FC Cincinnati, and Emanuel Latte is still pending on that move to the MLS. But some incomings, Dana's long wait for Ryan Giles to come back, and he came back on a loan deal with no obligation to buy. And then on top of that, Edmondson decided to return, and Morgan Whittaker signed for Middlesbrough on a fee from $5 million rising to $7 million. And well, we'll do a lowdown on Whittaker this week, so you'll always get that lowdown video from us. But guys, I just want to get some thoughts on the ins and outs of the week so far. So Matt, Hamilton going to Stockport is the big one. And I appreciate Lucas Engel is pretty much going to leave on loan to FC Cincinnati and then with an obligation to buy on top of that. So what are your thoughts on the outgoings for this week?
Well, firstly, Johnny, I just want to ask if you're okay with Engel.
I'm okay.
I just want to make sure you're all right, and you don't need an arm around the shoulder, because that's a tough one for you.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, Matt, because I've just been myself. I've been myself all week. I've been crying on the. I've been very busy this week at work. London and Manchester, and I've just been crying on the train. Just haven't been myself.
Crying into your Danish flag. Yeah.
Can't eat a Danish pastry ever again. Can't do it.
Yeah. It's there's no surprise. I mean, when I saw Giles was linked with coming back, the only left back I thought was realistically going to leave was Lucas Engel. Because Borges, he's not been here as long. I mean, he could go in the summer, I guess, but with Bangura being injured, it didn't make any sense with either of them two. So, yeah, Giles coming in, Engel leaving. It's a shame for Lucas. A lot of promise as the 5-star. 5 out of 5 rating. Sorry to bring up. It looked like he could be the follow up to Ryan Giles, but he struggled defensively and didn't ever really offer us enough going forwards either. So even though, and I know we'll discuss Giles's deal and Dana will as well, there's options for both, I feel like, and I think if we activate one incoming, it'll activate the Engel outgoing in the summer. So I'm not surprised by that, and I'm quite happy that Hamilton's gone out on loan. Actually, I wasn't sure that was going to happen. I think Carrick was quoted a couple of times when asked that he was more than comfortable to keep him with us, but I do think it's the right thing to do. I know there's a benefit to keeping him around the group and improving him on the training ground, and we know how good Carrick is at improving players, but I think Hamilton does just need experience, and to go out on loan to Stockport, a team who are doing pretty well in League One, I think is perfect for him. And as soon as that move happened, I felt more confident the Whittaker deal might happen at the same time with, again, one coming in, one going out. So I'm happy with both, and I wish Engel all the best, and I hope Hamilton can improve and come back a much better player with more experience and confidence.
Yeah, and with Hamilton as well, he had a bad injury last season, like a really bad injury, which I know he's still having like the effects of now, but getting game time for him, I think, is super valuable. I just feel like he hasn't got into a rhythm, and I feel like he's a player that needs it right now. So I'm happy for that move. And then for Engel as well, yeah, look, he was going to go on. I think he's going to go in the summer, really, until Bangura got injured, and we really needed him. And yeah, I just think it's a move that hasn't really worked out. And look, even on that lowdown video, I remember just like going, wow, good play. And then I was adding like the multipliers that you would add for a player who comes from like a lesser league to a more competitive league and still look good from like a number standpoint. And you were thinking, okay, we might have got a really good player here or a gem, and it just hasn't worked for him, and it's a shame, really. But I'll probably cry again after this episode, and fingers crossed he has a successful move in the MLS, and we may see him in English football soon. But Dana, the return of Ryan Giles, 6-month loan, no obligation to buy, of course, which I'll come on to in a moment. But what was your thoughts and feelings and emotions seeing him in a Boro shirt once again?
You know what? It was probably the best moment of yesterday's game. He got a really good reception from the Boro fans in Deepdale. Felt a little bit sorry for Neto Borges because he'd just been twatted one by the ball and then he goes off and Boro fans are singing Ryan Giles' name. But yeah, it's like a love story really between Ryan Giles and Middlesbrough. And I honestly thought that the ship had sailed at points, so I kind of got over it. And it was mainly because of the situational, I guess. I didn't ever think that Boro weren't interested in Giles. It was more that I just didn't think that it could happen. That we tried a couple of times when he left the first time and then in the summer. And I just felt like maybe this is just another chance to get Giles that just won't materialise. And it has. I'm happy to see him back. I'm a little bit worried, though, that for Giles, he has had a difficult 2 years where at Luton he just was never going to fit. He was never going to fit a team that are not possession dominant, because when you're not possession dominant, of course you have to defend. And with Ryan Giles, we all know that that's not his strong suit. His strong suit is going at the other end. So if ever he was going to make that move or make a move, he would have been better off going to a possession dominant team. But to be honest, Premier League move, don't blame him for that. At Hull, he's had 3 managers at Hull. He's had Liam Rossini, Tim Volta, and now Ruben Sellers. Very difficult for a player to really get into a rhythm there. So it's imperative for him, and it's a big opportunity for him actually to get his career back on track, because it has veered slightly off it in recent years. I'm just concerned, though, that he doesn't have a lot of time to do that, because it is a loan deal until the end of the season. And I wouldn't be surprised come the end of the season, come May, that we're all looking back on Giles and there'll be discussions around, should we keep him, should he be here on a permanent deal, and we're all kind of like, nah, I'm not sure. So he's got to make an impact pretty quickly, otherwise he might actually be back at Hull. I mean, I don't know really the inner workings of the deal. Maybe Boro are going to sign him on a permanent anyways, even though there's no option to buy or obligation to buy. But I'm hoping that he can rediscover his form, because there's no doubt that Ryan Giles is a talented player and he can add another layer to Boro's attack, which I actually think the creativity, from a creative standpoint, Boro have become a little bit stale of late. The West Brom game, okay, people will be like, well, we won 2-0, but it was from a long shot, and fair enough, the second goal was good. But we don't, of late, we're not really creating a lot of high quality chances that I can note. So I think just to give that little something that we don't already have, i.e. great cross ability, I think is a plus point for me. And I'm hoping that Ryan Giles can really make an impact straight away, because I would like to see that deal made permanent, because Ryan Giles and Middlesbrough just makes sense, and he's got the right manager there and Michael Carrick to get the best out of him. So hopefully we can see that rediscovering of the 2022-23 Ryan Giles. But if not, an adjustment, as long as I could see an effective Ryan Giles, I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, we were not a little bit surprised that it wasn't a permanent, because it was tipped to be a permanent deal, and the last moment it was moved to a loan with no obligation. So, Matt, were you a little bit surprised that it just was the 6-month loan deal?
I think I was more surprised there wasn't an option to buy. I can kind of see why, maybe because his wages are high, or reportedly high at Hull. Might have been a bit too much for Boro to take on at this moment in time. So I was more surprised that, okay, we have to do a loan, fine. There wasn't an absolute obligation, because my first thoughts were his stock's at its absolute lowest right now. It's just went through his recent career. It's not been great the last 18 months or so. So I thought if there was ever a time for Boro to stick a bid in, it would be now, because if he has a good 6 months, his stock will rise and Hull can still dictate whatever the hell they want from him, and they'll probably want more. But then I sort of thought, well, a loan is low risk, and I guess it's a bit of a litmus test for Boro to just see if Ryan Giles is still the Ryan Giles we remember and we hope he can be, because for all we know, it might not work. I always feel uneasy about second spells with players returning to the club. I always just feel like the the expectation is just that little bit higher because of what come before, and that allows maybe people to be a little bit more disappointed if things don't quite go as well. So yeah, I think it's not the worst deal in the world, because if it doesn't work, he goes back to Hull, and as Dee said, we can just hold our hands up and say, okay, he's not a problem. He's moved back. It hasn't worked. We move on and look at someone else. But I honestly do believe he will improve and he will get back to a good level. Whether it's the same level as before, I don't know, because it is only 6 months. But I think if anyone can get the best out of him, it's Carrick in this system. So maybe we are just sacrificing the fact that, yeah, we might have to pay more in the summer, but we just want to make sure that he's still up to it in these 6 months. And I feel like the Engel deal's a part of that as well. You know, there's an option for both. If we sanction the move for Engel to go to Cincinnati, then we'll bring in Ryan Giles. So I think, yeah, without there being an option, I'm not as down on it as maybe I was when it was first announced.
Yeah, look, I'm the same as well. I think it's to get him on a loan, I think it's even better, I guess, for right now. I just think that when we look at Middlesbrough's left back dynamic, appreciate we won't know what Bangura is going to come back. And I think we haven't seen enough of Alex Bangura. And the very brief moments we've seen him, I've really liked him. But it's just interesting to see what happens, because he's got a bad injury, and not many players are the same when they do come back from that. You know what? They'll make full recoveries, but sometimes you have that just mental block, which might impact his game quite considerably. But for Ryan Giles, it's a good move for now. I think financially, what he's earning with Hull and what he earned at Luton, we just cannot compete with in comparison to weekly wise. And yeah, we're in a good moment with him. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he does the business for us and creates those extra chances that we need. But let's move on, because let's not chat about Morgan Whittaker just yet, because there is a lowdown completely dedicated to Morgan Whittaker. And I want to move ahead and chat about the game a week on Monday against Sunderland. And before we do that, we do, of course, have our trivia section of the podcast. And today, guys, so get your pens and paper or phones at the ready for this question about Julio Arca. A player loved, of course, on both sides, and both sets of fans really do adore him. But who did he play more for, and how many games did he play? So it's who did he play more games for, and what were the appearances? So I want the exact number of appearances, but also the team he played more games for. So your time starts now. Time is up. Time is up. So hope you are ready for your answers. Then what will come to you? Who did Julio Arca play more for?
I do feel like it's close. I remember Julio Arca playing for Boro, signed in I think like 2006, and then he was still with us when we were in the Championship, the drag-back king. I'm gonna go with that. He played the most for Middlesbrough, and I've just given a wild stab in the dark, 173 appearances for Julio Arca in a Middlesbrough shirt.
And then for you, Matt?
Complete guess. I don't know much of his Sunderland career at all, but I've gone with Sunderland, and I've gone with 150 appearances. I'm completely guessing with that one.
Okay, well, I'll give you your answers, because Julio Arca played 6 full seasons for both teams. He played over 100 games for both teams. However, Julio Arca played 177 games for Sunderland, scoring 23 goals. And for Middlesbrough, he played 185 games, scoring just the 9 goals. So, in fact, he did play for Middlesbrough more, just by a few. Anyway, let's move. Very close. That's why I was like, who is the players that have played for both teams, and close enough. But Julio Arca, I mean, very much loved man in this part of the world. I think he's North Shields manager now. I think maybe I don't know, one of the Shields. Anyway,
I think he was.
Yeah, but he's doing. Julio Arca's doing what Julio Arca's doing right now, and I'm all for it. Anyway, let's move on to the derby. Not a derby, might be a derby, depending on who you win. Whoever wins, it's a derby. So, to get some more insight into Sunderland's season, we spoke with Graham from What the Folk, who shared his thoughts on their team campaign.
Hello Boro fans, it's just Graham here from the What the Fuck podcast as per usual when us two play each other. I've been asked by your always excellent host Johnny to give you a little bit of a lowdown on our season so far ahead of our game next Monday, so I'll try my best to do that without being too reactionary to our last result yesterday, and I'll also try to keep it under 5 minutes if I can. But, I'll just start off by saying, if I'm completely honest, as much as I'm really frustrated about yesterday's result, naturally it's been a great season for us. We're unbeaten at home. I think we've only lost one of the 5 games against the top 3 teams in terms of Sheffield United, Leeds United and Burnley. And we look on course to, at least comfortably finishing the playoffs, which is a massive, massive improvement on last season, where I think, if the season had been an extra 3 games, we probably would have been in trouble for the relegation spots, as it was. That wasn't the case and whatnot, and I think everyone's seen what happened with Sunderland last season, but that's obviously a massive improvement. But, as always, when your team plays above your pre-season expectations, your own expectations and the fan base expectations go up. And there's been a few games recently that may go down as, really big ones if we end up missing out on the automatic, so we end up not winning the playoffs. And I don't think there's any more that you could say are more important than yesterday, really. I think people have seen the Burnley game, 2 missed penalties. It's really hard to explain that one. Then you go to Derby and you win. And then you play Plymouth at home, who are bottom of the league, just been whacked 5-0 by Burnley. And unfortunately, we just went at the races yesterday. So, look, a fantastic season for us, but in many ways, there could be a lot of frustration by the end of it. We've got some players where the bigger clubs are already sniffing around them, your Jobs, your Chris Riggs. I'm sure there's more than that. People look at the likes of Dan Ballard, that's been rumoured in the past. There's a few of our players who are linked to clubs higher up the chain. And I think if we don't get promotion because of silly little results like dropping a 2-goal lead against Coventry, conceding a last-minute goal against Millwall, conceding a last-minute goal against Plymouth yesterday, missing 2 penalties against Burnley, and those players go, naturally there's going to be some disappointment. But ultimately, look, it's been a fantastic season and I can't complain. I've been incredibly happy. I think, we all go to games hopeful that we're going to have a team that we can be proud of, that we know at least has put the effort in by the end of the game. And I definitely feel like that with Sunderland, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100 to be completely honest this season. But as you can probably tell, I'm speaking to you on Sunday, but we will probably enter the game in a bit of a despondent mood, oddly. Similar to yourselves, based on yesterday's result that you had and the way it came. I think we've seen the defending, and you've probably seen how we've defended on our goal, and that becomes frustrating. But, hopefully, as the game gets closer, we'll both have that sort of ebbed away, and it'll be a really good game between what I think is 2 really good teams. I think when you look at the game next week, it's massive in the context of both our seasons. A win for us, or a point away at Boro, keeps you well away from us on the table, keeps us well within the top 4, keeps us in the automatic promotion chase, although a draw would affect us a little bit. But you've got Burnley and Leeds playing on Monday. Obviously, we don't know the result of that just yet. But, if we lose, we've dropped points to Burnley, Plymouth at home and then Middlesbrough in our last 4 games, and the Championship's a bit of a cruel mistress at times. So for me, this game on Monday is huge. Despite the fact we've had a great season, lose it, it's not looking great. But I think if we're looking at key players for us, it's hard to look past Joe Bellingham and Enzo Latte at the moment. For me, when Joe plays well this season, so does Sunderland, and he's been absolutely excellent this season. He was really poor yesterday, but I'd legitimately say that's his first bad game he's had for us this season. I think he makes us tick in the middle. He's brilliant in transition, and just offers us so much steel in the middle. Really strong on the ball, great range of passing, good in the tackle, and something we've missed for absolutely years. In terms of Enzo Latte, he's only played 3 games, all out of position, but you can clearly see he's got that quality that's well above this level, as his career suggests. And hopefully we'll see him in a more central position against Middlesbrough as opposed to being off the left, which he has been recently, so he can affect things a little bit more in the middle. But I think the key battle's going to come down our left, to be honest. I love Dennis Irkin. I think he's one of the best left backs in the league, but he's been out of sorts for quite a few games now. He's not really been at the level he should be at. And as someone who lives in Scotland and all about Ben Doak and that sort of freedom and joy he almost plays for us on the right-hand side, he's a lovely player to watch. Hopefully he's not on Monday, but I think that could be a key battle if Dennis Cirkin continues being under par and not hitting the form that we're used to with him. That could be our weak spot, because I think Ben Doak's got the ability to torture any left-back in this league when he's on it, and I think that's just me being completely honest. The kid's really talented. In terms of predictions, I'm not going to lie, I'm not hugely confident on it. It's probably a knock-on result of yesterday, but I do believe football's quite cyclical, and I think you're probably due one over us. But I can't go against Sunderland, and I can't go against my own team. I've got to go in with a little bit of positivity. So I'm going to go a fluky 1-1, similar to last year when Rusyn scored for us. But you know what? Hopefully a great game. Of course, I hope for 3 points for us. But, good luck for the rest of the season. I genuinely mean that, as long as it doesn't affect us. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Graham. Always good having you on, and I was on his show earlier this morning as well. But guys, prediction time now. How are you feeling about this one? Matt, win, lose, draw, match abandoned? How are you feeling?
I'm not feeling great about this one. I'm going to be honest. I feel like not entirely the entire reason as to why Boro fans are so aggravated with this season, but I think a big part as to why we're a little bit aggravated with Boro's form is that Sunderland are probably the team we should be and are in the position we should be. So for them to rock up in our backyard and get one over on us could be awful. So I'm dreading this game, to be honest. And I think just because the fan base right now and just Boro's season as a whole feels like it's on a bit of a knife edge. A win here could both set us up to finally go on a run, and it could be the catalyst for something good. But then if we were to lose, I dread to think what might be the fallout. So I am very, very wary of what this game could bring. So I'm just going to play it safe and go down the middle. I think a draw would still be a good result for us. Just don't get beat. Just don't get beat by Sunderland at the Riverside. So I'm going to go one each. I'm going to agree with Graham on that.
Yeah, and look, I agreed with Graham as well. I said 1-1. I think it's just going to be a draw written all over it. But, Dynamo, what are you going to go for? Are you optimistic or not optimistic?
You know what? I'm excited, but I think it's more hopeful than expected with Boro at home. I mentioned quite a few podcasts ago now that I can't trust this Middlesbrough team. That's not really changed, especially at home. Actually, a full house of 1-1s. I think that it'll be a draw that won't really do much for us in terms of the league position. Not like anything can really do much for us because there's so much of a gap, between fourth and third. So, fourth and fifth. So yeah, I think it'll be 1-1.
Okay, then a full house of 1-1. So, but let us know your score predictions in the comments, of course, as well. And don't forget to add us on social media on any platform, because we are on pretty much most platforms, to give us your predictions too. Guys, thank you very much for joining me as always. To listen to the viewers, don't forget to subscribe to the Boro Breakdown channel. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on your podcast providers. But for right now, this has been the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was our Boro Match Day Chatter in a pod. Up the butter.